and activate their voice through writing and through speech. I asked Melissa why and how did she come to this, and she writes that she had a 15-year career in sales and marketing. And she also consulted with nonprofits and faith-based organizations and broad area in an activation hour. Wow, LLC. So you are going to meet up tonight with someone that really fits WCEG's mission and purpose, which is to be empowering, both for yourself and for others. So with no further ado, I'd like you to meet Melissa White. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. You know, you never get used to hearing about yourself on the other side of the seat, but thank you.
Oh my gosh. And in addition, I forgot to tell the listeners that she's also a faithful servant in ministry,
Yes.
as I am. And how are we ministering today, but directly in the world, not
Yes.
of the world, but in the world? She's a licensed minister at the Kingdom Empowerment Center in McDonough. So I hope you'll talk a little bit about that. So Melissa, what interests me, oh, and I should tell everyone where we met.
Yes,
We went to
yes.
a wonderful workshop
Yes,
for
we
the
did.
Partnership on the Future of Learning. And I was just so impressed with the workshop itself and all that it brought out. But I wondered, for everybody that was there, and you particularly, what was the primary instigating incidents in your life? I think that's really important to go back in time and say, what instigated you to move in this direction?
Wow, that's a great way to open up this dialogue because it lays a foundation. I think what instigated me was when I finally accepted a call to service. Honestly.
Listen, call to
It
service.
was a call to service. I have to be transparent about that. Anytime I tell my story, I make sure that I preface it with, I did not set out to start a nonprofit or do some great work. Like, I didn't just wake up one day and say, I think I'll start a nonprofit. I think I'll organize in a community. It didn't work that way at all. It was actually the very thing I was running from.
Really?
Yes. So this work that I've been called to do, it's a generational work. So what really initiated me being in that room was a history of watching my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mother, who are all community servants. And so when you watch your mother run a nonprofit or you see your family working in community, you can see the good and the bad in that. And
That's
I was the young lady that said, you know what, I am going to take the route of formal education, get a degree, work my corporate job, because I just saw being an entrepreneur itself or an organizer itself is very daunting and very different. To be self-motivated and to get out there, it's a very thankless role to take on.
That would be right.
And I saw that firsthand in my family, and I said, I don't want that. I specifically said I didn't particularly want the nonprofit sector, which is laughable. And so it wasn't until I fully accepted my call to ministry in 2015.
Ooh.
And then a few months after that, in 2016, that I was called and led to start righting our wrongs. And so for me, like I tell people, it was the first act of service that I was called to do that was outside of myself.
Oh, you had to stretch.
I had to stretch. It was a stretch.
No.
Because anything before that, I said, nope, I just want to go to work. I would just want to climb my corporate ladder. I would mentor. I would volunteer, but never really going so far outside myself where it made me uncomfortable or stretched me. So this was that thing.
Well, I believe there is a primary instigating incident.
Yes.
And why righting our wrongs?
Yeah, you're right. There was a very specific incident. And at the time, like I said, I was in corporate America. In 2016, let me go back up 2 years to August 2014.
Oh, my.
When Michael Brown was killed.
Yes.
And that was a very tumultuous time in our country between 2014 and 2016 in the wake of several police shootings, the political climate in our country. And it was very hard at times for any of us to navigate that, and know how to broach those topics in our communities, outside of our communities, with others who may look different and think different, and who had different influences and outlooks on those topics. And so for me, navigating corporate America while those things specifically was going on in my community, in the African American community, it became painful for me. Because at the same time where I was a corporate trainer, I worked in sales and marketing, I would travel and I would experience, that the temperature of this around the country in different areas, and I could not shake it. Like, I literally grieved, particularly when Michael Brown died. I'll never forget, I was here in Southwest Atlanta. I carry a journal with me everywhere I go. And I grieved as I watched that video, like so many millions of us did. But as I began to write, it became cathartic for me. And God just really showed me, like, hey, if you grieve like this as an adult, how would children of this generation of young people feel? How do they express it? Are they given the proper tools or outlet? Particularly for kids in low income or marginalized communities, do they have the resources to talk to a counselor, or know to talk to a counselor, or write it out, speak it out? They have the same frustrations.
Ooh, I have chills.
And so I had chills. I have chills every time I tell that story. Being an African American female and seeing these occurrences happen over and over again, you can't help but fear and pray for your fathers, brothers, relatives, neighbors, your loved ones. And I specifically thought of my nephew, my brother, and I grieved. I literally, and I couldn't, I had nothing else, I think, in society had shaken me in that way. But that's just one occurrence. We know there are countless numbers.
Today's Eric Gardner's.
Yeah.
I mean, I grieve for him too.
We grieve for all of them. And so, but I had to make sure, okay, I knew that my self-expression and my healing was in writing. And so at that moment, I began to write affirmations, but I didn't do anything with it. I didn't think it was big enough, Reverend Diane, until 2016, when God brought me back to those notes in my journal when I was in ministry training. He said, and through my pastors, they said, hey, this is going to be the thing that changes your life. If you obey, and it has been life-changing through serving. So that's a little bit of, like you said, there was something initiating it. It was the call to service, but there's an atmosphere that's set. Whenever there is a shift in people, in nature, in our behavior, in policy and politics, you just it's like a fire that's stirring, right? There were all these little fires of situations happening in our country, and like, wait, something's brewing, which all led up to, of course, the last election. And so it was just kind of a very imperfect storm that needed change and results.
Melissa D. White is speaking. Is speaking her truth.
Yeah.
And, if all of the listeners would understand and just ask yourself, what is your primary instigating incident?
That's good.
What is causing you to move in the direction that you're moving, and why? It is such a reflection. And it's almost like you had to give up corporate America.
I did.
You had to give up everything that would bring you security and comfort, because and your community. Because honestly, I've been in corporate America too, and that it becomes your home. To give that up for the insecurity of what you're doing.
And so wow. For you to bring that up, particularly today, like, I left my corporate job a year and a half ago, and that's what serving is. It's a continuous act of what you're willing to give up, to obey a call of any kind. To take a stand of any kind.
Take a stand of any kind.
Will never be comfortable. Never.
I love it. You got it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm here to support you, because
Thank you.
When you don't have that comfort, you need to surround yourself with people who support you.
Yes.
Because honestly, it is hard.
Very.
especially when you think finances.
It is. It's I tell people all the time, nonprofit doesn't mean free.
Oh,
And
yeah.
community work takes funding. I'm even in a place now. We talk about our faith, and even in studying Paul, the ministry it required provision. Any call requires provision,
That's right.
and so it is a faith walk.
It is a faith walk, and I have to tell you, I was a nun for 23 years.
Yeah.
So in that faith walk, we really had nothing. Because isn't it interesting how women took vows of poverty, but priests do not? So all of us,
Wow.
I look back and I think, we were made poor because, in a sense, we were enslaved to the institution that we were building, but we never got profit from the we never profited from the institution. But the women were very wise and shifted away from the institution, from the hierarchy, so that others helped them build up that stability for themselves. So I'm going to give that as a little taste for you to be thinking of, a little piece of candy. Always surround yourself with others who not only will lift you up, but will help you navigate those waters. Because
good.
that's what helped me as I was navigating, moving out of the hierarchical church, being a sister, then being a lay woman in a parish, and then in the public school system. So eventually I had systems. I was able to use the systems to help me.
There you
so that
go.
now, as I begin this work in my aged years,
Oh, these are your golden
oh
years.
my
You
gosh, yes
are-
they are.
Yeah, you
But
are
I
living
but I have the
fabulously.
wisdom
Yeah. Yes.
to
yes.
to help all people like you who are trying to navigate those waters, because it's easy to fall through a crack.
Yeah, I think that for me, that's what bonded us when we met.
Yes.
Was you had this instantaneous wisdom to share in.
Wisdom built on pain
Yeah, but
and mistakes.
yeah, you're right. It didn't come without a cost.
It did not.
But the grace in it is that though you had a cost and a price for your wisdom, I'm grateful for not only you sharing that, but many others,
Absolutely.
and the fact that we're given grace to learn the lessons. Like, you probably saved me 10 years of heartache, pain, and research, and the wisdom, if I allow it to impart, right? So there's some obedience that has to partner with that wisdom, right? So I have to listen, trust, and obey, and say, okay, what can I glean from that to apply?
And grab a people.
Yeah. Oh,
Find
yes.
out where they are.
Know the people.
Know the people.
That was a part of this process, though. It's been 2.5 years of doing our work with the youth, but it was being very specific of staying in God's face about, wait, so do I work with all kids or specific kids? What territory am I called to?
Discernment.
You have to really be very sensitive and guided into where to go and how to go, so that you do not waste time and resources and labor and tarry in the wrong place with the right message.
Well, one of the things that I go back and I look at is all the time I spent making those mistakes, trying to find my way, because there was no one to lead. There was no leader.
Not for trailblazers.
No, because people, but so many people have been thrown out of institutions now. They need us.
Oh, you're right.
They
You're
need
right.
us. And so what's happening is there's new growth that's coming out of the old growth of loss. And we have to bolster each other. We have to lift each other up.
Wow, that's good. I'm still pondering on, now the institutions need us. And that has been the cornerstone of our work with righting our wrongs, is we realize we don't work in silos.
No.
There's a collaborative work, just as we discussed in our shared stories convening experiences, that there are community partners, educational partners, religious partners within the faith-based community around us. It's a collaborative work, and we each hold a very vital piece. And so for me, it was very important to identify those partners and align. And it's, for me, I always do a mission check. I always do a mission check.
I like it. I like that.
That's my litmus test. I look for very specific words in terms of service, activation, youth, empowerment, community. And then I look for tangible ways to measure, are they living out their mission? And if I can't see a tangible result of them living that out, then that might not be my partner, and that's okay. I think, and I encourage anyone listening, that when you set out to organize within the community, not everybody will be your partner, unfortunately, because not everyone's not doing it from a place of service.
That's right.
So have some type of litmus test or checkpoint to say, okay, are these my people?
Are these my people?
Are these my people?
Where do you work right now?
Truly, well, you mentioned my agency.
Big coming up.
Well, okay, yes, I do have something big coming up. I laugh like that when you say where do you work? That's so fluid, because although I have Righting Our Wrongs, I do have a sales and marketing agency, the Activation Hour, and I talked about provision earlier. What's so amazing is through doing Righting Our Wrongs first, the youth led me to my passion for things that I loved in writing and in media, and which were ways to provide for the community work.
Love it.
So the agency came afterwards. But yeah, we have amazing work coming up. I'm super excited. One of the original programmatic thrusts that we wanted for Righting Our Wrongs, or WOW, as we affectionately call it, is to see youth not only taught civics again, but engaged in how to organize effectively. And we're partnering with our local YMCA, the Andrew and Walter Young Family YMCA, and the teens, the Maya Angelou teens there, which are an incredible group of genius minds. Like they are so empathetic and sensitive to the needs of their community, the outcry of their community. They are passionate, and they have so many ideas that they came to us and said, "Hey, let's do a youth town hall together."
That's so exciting.
I know you. I can see you waiting for me to say youth town hall, and that was really when we connected. You said, "What can I do?" What and you just gave some great nuggets of wisdom too, and we talked about that. But the youth town hall, because the youth have something to say, and not just all youth. But particularly, again, Black and brown youth in low-income and marginalized areas who oftentimes are not given the tools to organize, when I say effectively, with true tangible results and sustainability of their efforts. And I see several studies about youth in these communities that are they taught a lifestyle of service? Like, civics is not in schools anymore. You have to kind of look at the dichotomy of the family and the neighborhood around them and the schools, where some schools may make service a requirement. It's not always necessarily a requirement in some of the school activities or clubs that they're involved in. And so we want to create opportunities for them to go to the Capitol, to do community days in their neighborhood, to do cleanup projects, whatever it is. And that's the beauty of it. It's all student-led. It's not us as adults.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's youth-led. We had an amazing opportunity to not only partner with the YMCA, but also Vox Teens, which is here in Atlanta.
Yes.
Yeah, you're familiar.
Yes.
They have an incredible program that, again, that's where I talked about the mission alignment. Their mission is, activating the voices of youth, right? So I said it's those key words, youth and activation. I saw the mission, and I immediately was like, those are my people. I need them, and I need to lock arms with them for what we're doing. And we nurtured that relationship. And they came out, did workshops with our kids where they identified, what does my community look like? What role do I play in this? And how can I be a part of the change in it? Mm-hmm. And so it was. I like the way Vox puts it. For adults, we're not the teachers. We're the guide on the side. Is what they call it.
Guide on the side. I like it.
Guide on the side.
Mm-hmm.
And
Every teacher should be
a
that
guide on the side.
guide on the side.
Because it encourages innovation and creativity. And what really wowed me about our work with them recently was many of the youth felt they needed permission to address the topics. They said, is it okay for me to write this? Is it okay for me to say this?
So do you have them write a script to give a panel?
No, well, we're working towards that. So first we had to identify the issues before we even get to the scripting part. But you speak about writing, which of course our program focus is writing and speaking. We do have them write, whether it's free form to just like, whether it's journaling to get it out, poetry, we encourage the self-expression, but there's another component where we teach them civics and also writing to your local legislature and your public officials.
Get out.
We teach them that. Like our kids will know who their district representatives are, and they know about your community meetings and council meetings are a public forum. Your school board meeting a public forum. You do not have to be of age to vote, to participate. You are a citizen, albeit a young citizen. You're still a citizen. So they understand that.
I am so excited. I'd like to, afterward, after this, talk to you a little bit about the Interfaith Children's Network, too.
I would love to
movement.
learn more. Yeah.
And they're doing the same thing.
Okay.
We just went last night to the iftar dinner at the Muslim community in Alpharetta. And 2 young kids got up and talked about the 5 months that they had studied the issues that related to things that they were concerned of. And there were 17 that were taken to the United Nations to
That's
talk about the
phenomenal.
issues that are important to them and
Wow.
the future in the United States and also in their countries.
Wow.
I know it, wow.
Literally, wow.
The
The future is now. We can't say they're the leaders of
Exactly.
the future. They are now.
Exactly. And they're very articulate. So
Absolutely.
I have about 3 groups I'd like to introduce you to.
Thank
But
you.
you're the instigator. You're going to be the primary
Yeah.
instigating incident for others. And from that matchbox, they will be on fire for themselves.
Yes.
And you will encourage others to do this. I'm so excited.
I am too. And I'm grateful when people are selfless with their acts of kindness, the information, just like you shared, and they really catch on to the mission. That's when I knew it was a God moment. Like I could read my resume and talk about a million things and other experiences, but it's something about when I mention wow, it resonates in the hearts of people because we're hungry for it in this season.
Exactly. Have you heard of quantum physics?
Yes, I have.
Well, the theory behind quantum physics is that when there is something in nature that is experienced by you, and it is new and it's evolving, from a quantum perspective, it will repeat itself, but not in the same place. It will repeat itself, say, in South Africa. It'll repeat itself in Europe and many other places. So a quantum experience, in my little definition, is exactly what you said. So many people are hungry for this, and this
Yes.
next generation must have the tools to carry on the mission.
Yes.
And you're getting it started.
It's an honor. It's really just being willing to be used.
Yes.
Because as I told you, this was not
That's right.
my plan
Uh-uh.
at all.
I know that story.
Yeah, right. You understand what a calling is and looks
I
like.
do.
As many do. Regardless of your belief or faith, a calling is a calling. If you're called to impact change, if you know it's going to be disruptive, it's almost like in this season of my life, I've become so accustomed to being disruptive. I just run towards things that are uncomfortable now.
Ooh.
I wasn't always that case. I'm experiencing it in actually every area of my life. I've actually said through this work what it taught me, and I say this to other servants who are listening, and you're kind of fighting against the work. lean into disruption, lean into discomfort, right? Because when you do, everything else falls in line for you. I believe that. I almost feel you're accelerated through the process when you finally give into it.
Sounds like you're giving a TED talk that was given yesterday on
What-
creativity.
Well,
Gotta
even
listen to it. I'm
creativity,
gonna
if you
send
lean
it to
into
you.
but it's the same thing. Creativity is disruptive. Are you a creative person?
Well, the creativity happens when there is a disruption.
when there is you're right.
When you're disrupted and you're disturbed.
Yeah.
When you're a disturbed human being. I'm very disturbed.
I think we all are to an extent. None of us is perfect, but something had to disturb or disrupt. And creativity is really about solving problems.
It is.
Right?
And creating something out of that disturbance.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that's good.
women all over the place now have the ability to raise up. And so that's why I
Yes.
like you so much.
Oh, thank you.
know.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to know, this is another very important question that
Okay.
I really love to reflect on with people. And it is, what is the most important and challenging moment that steered you and flipped you into this direction?
The most challenging
The
moment.
most challenging.
There are two, so I'll narrow it down the best I can. The first most challenging moment was when I realized what was required of me with my time.
Oh,
So we touched on like that corporate transition earlier, and I kept trying to I did the work for a year and a half while working a corporate job where I travel 80% of the time.
ooh.
And while doing other things, but I realized like the work, the calling was bigger than everything else. It began to push everything else out of the way. It's demanding. It is demanding. It will require you to give. And oftentimes we think, okay, give monetarily, but no, it will require you to give the best of yourself and not the least of your time, not the time where you're depleted and tired, but it will require the first fruits of your time, right? That was a challenge for me to say, no, this deserves my best. Although it may not be the most financially lucrative in the beginning, I had to be willing to set aside the financial gain and see the bigger picture. That was a mindset shift and a faith shift for me. The second, the most challenging part has literally been building a team around service work. I have learned surrender in serving like I never have before. And I'd be remiss if I did not thank the WOW team. Like I was doing this work kind of by myself and kind of in my own silo. And then once I opened my mouth, it finally pushed me as a woman, as an independent woman, as, raised by this single mom and taught like you can do all of these things. And I realized everything that I could not do. And I identified the key people in that I needed. So I began to be so incredibly vulnerable and open about, hey, I do need you for this work. I can't do this alone. And once I finally was able to show people that I'm not Superwoman and I don't have this all figured out, and we have to come outside of our pride. Service will kill your pride.
You're not yet able to save the world.
You're not, no, that was not my calling. There was one greater than me that came before me to do that. But I'm so thankful for my team. I looked up one day. It felt like overnight, although it wasn't. I looked around me. I said, wait a minute. I have a board and a team and volunteers. Oh my! And none of them paid. And I said, and they're really and I looked behind me, and it's like, wait, they're really following. I think that is like a paradigm for every leader. Well, not even a leader, a trailblazer. Because when you're in the front and you're knocking down the thickets and you're laying a trail, you're so focused on going forward and trudging the path, and then finally you look back and you say, "Oh, they're really following the path. They're really
Because they want it.
because they want it." And I think that
Because it is of value.
it is of value, and that it's not my own. This it doesn't belong to me. God just used me to bring this into the earth, but it's not mine.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So you're able to influence children.
Yeah. They influence me more.
And that's true. That's true.
Oh, man.
But what would you tell them
Uh-huh.
about your choices?
What would I tell them about
If they
my
were
choices?
curious about you and your background,
They
what would
often
you say?
are.
What do you tell them about the choices that you have made? Because I think that's important.
Yeah, my biggest message to them is don't let the world minimize you.
Ooh.
Don't let the world minimize you. You're not just anything. You're not just a child.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just one person. You're not just black or brown or whatever in God's rainbow. You're not just a woman or just female. You are beyond, bigger, smarter. Write the book. Believe the big ideas when you have them. They came to you specifically for a reason. I would tell them to
What do you say to children that don't have those big ideas?
that even the small ones matter. Oak tree started as seeds.
There you go.
Because remember, I told you, Righting Our Wrongs came to me in 2014. I didn't believe it was big enough until I accepted my ministry calling. And I said, it's not about what's big. If I can do this, I believe that he can take my small and make it big through him, through God. I had to believe the small was enough and do the one thing. Sometimes it's just doing one thing. And the one thing that I really did first with Righting Our Wrongs was to write a pledge card. I just wrote some words of affirmation. It did not start off out of the gate as a nonprofit.
So you wrote your own pledge
I wrote a pledge.
to yourself.
I wrote a pledge for youth to recite and believe and build up their confidence. And so so let me give you some context, some backstory. It wasn't that, okay, well, I finally accepted this calling, then I went and I drafted a 501c3 and did all this other and got the website and all this stuff. No, I did one thing. The one thing I had to do was to write that pledge and that affirmation. And I think I went online to Vistaprint or something, got some cheap cards, printed up, and I just would drive around my car in Atlanta and I would just drop off stacks of cards at different schools, and the administrators would say, well, what is this for? I said, just give it to the kids. What do you want? Nothing. I don't want anything. Give it to the kids.
Are you kidding?
And within 30 days, my phone was ringing like crazy. Because mind you, this was between July and September of 2016. During that election cycle, bullying was becoming prevalent and rampant within schools as a result of our climate.
That's right.
The police shootings were still happening. It was a very tumultuous time. So now these incidents were breaking out within schools, and administrators were looking for answers. So Righting Our Wrongs came at a time to be an answer, where we were right in position when the things started to occur. And they remembered that card and said, wait, this lady just brought us this pledge card. And it talks about, I will use my voice to impact change in my community. I'll be greater today than I was yesterday. And it's telling them all these great things. I'll write the change, speak the change, be the change. And I started getting phone calls from teachers and administrators. And they say, hey, can you come speak? I'm like, yeah, I guess. And then it was, can you do a workshop? Okay. And it grew big, but I had to do one small thing. So as you talk about with a kid, what about the kids that don't have the big idea? It's the small that is used to do big things.
Ooh, I have chills. I do. I have chills.
I do too. Just that I'm thankful to do this work. It gives me chills when I see youth believe it and say it and live it.
That's right.
And live it. Yeah.
Okay, well, that was the great thing. Now, we've all experienced failures, right?
Yeah.
So you've been inspired, but what are your failures, and
Okay.
how have they inspired you? Often, I used to go to AA meetings, and I was always coming out so inspired by them because they talk about how they failed. And from that failure, they grew because they didn't want to, they wanted to have a new vision for themselves. So what failures have you experienced?
One, I'm thankful that I can finally articulate it.
Oh, that's good. And that's really true for a long
I
time.
wasn't able to for a long. I thought I was for real, but I wasn't being totally honest about it. Because you know how, like in interviews, they say, "Well, what's your strength? What's your weakness?" And I equated weakness to a failure, but that's wrong.
Absolutely wrong.
My weakness is actually my strength, and it's an opportunity for me to be better. The failures were perfectionism. like failed starts on projects and ideas and things because I would obsess over the details, and it had to be perfect, it had to be right, it had to be right. When oftentimes if I wasn't careful, it would equate to a missed opportunity because I was too deep into the details. I would miss a deadline on a grant or a project. Whatever. It's got to look this certain way. And it's like, but there has to be a finishing. You don't, if he who begun a great work is faithful to perform it, finish it, finish it. And I have to talk to myself like that sometimes. I'll set a timer and say, hey, if it's not done by this time, let it be. Let it be. And oftentimes, especially if you're a recovering perfectionist like me, you with what looks like less than to you can look like greatness to someone else. You have to be able to release it and let it go and allow it to morph. Organizations are organisms. It's not going to be perfect out of the gate.
Well said.
So my failure was, one, perfectionism also caused me to isolate my team. People want, you said it, they want to be a part of the mission.
Yes.
They held me accountable and said, give us the work. Give it to me. What are you working on that you can give to me? Mm-hmm. And if I've lost team members because they said, Melissa, that's a control thing. Perfectionism leads to control.
Micromanaging.
I had to be honest about those things in myself. So again, these acts of service, well, really like holding up a mirror, they start to show you things about yourself. And it's like, okay, am I willing to speak to it, own up to it, and shift? I think one of the greatest failures of our 2.5, almost 3-year history was
true confessions here.
This is true confessions. You asked me. I'm giving it to you straight.
I told you.
But like I told you, I'm thankful that I can articulate it now, because I don't ever, and I tell people this, I always preface a disclaimer like, forgive me if I ever make this look easy. Forgive me if I ever make this look flawless. It's not. Because I was guilty of that in so many areas before, especially in the social media age. Like, well, here's a pretty picture of Melissa and I'm doing these all really great things and I'm cute today. And it's like, no, like actually, I probably had a couple of stumbles and failures before you got to this snapshot of what's really going on. One of the failures was if you're not careful, for me, it was straying from our mission for one point. And not being really mindful of the big picture of what we're supposed to be doing. Mm-hmm. Particularly when you feel like you just have to be doing something right now.
Oh, yes.
Right. You know what I mean? Like you're like, oh, I feel like I'm not doing enough, or we don't have enough programming going on. Right. You don't always have to do. Sometimes you have to work, rest, let it sit for a while. You don't have to always be in perpetual motion. Not in the work. There are moments that are required for you to be still, and I say it's an almost failure. Even when it comes to like nonprofits and funding, be very careful about funding. I almost accepted funding from an institution that was not in line with what we wanted.
Oh.
Do your research, right? And it wasn't that the organization was bad or anything. They just required programming that incorporated something that wasn't in line with my mission.
I see.
So it doesn't have to be bad. It could be good, but not good for you.
Yeah.
So if you're not...
That's very spiritual, you know.
Yeah, it is.
It's a very spiritual.
Yeah.
Very, very spiritual position.
Yeah. Yeah. The service is spiritual work. It is spirit-led work.
The one of the great mystics of the time used to write about the seasons, mm-hmm. and that in everything that we do, we need to have seasons. We have seasons of our work, like when you have your town hall. That will be a summer.
Yes.
But then after it, mm-hmm. there will come the fall, mm-hmm. and then the winter where you rest. Mm-hmm. And instead of replacing mm-hmm. summer with summer with summer with summer with summer with summer, productivity with productivity, you can't continue that because it ruins the ground mm-hmm. on which your mission is laid. Mm-hmm. Oh, it's almost like the beginning of the 1900s mm-hmm. when they discovered that they were planting the same crop in the areas, and it depleted
exactly
the
what I was
soil.
thinking of, yep.
Yeah.
Seed and harvest.
Yeah, seed and harvest, and it ruined the topsoil, so nothing would grow. So it's it's really an important spiritual. You gotta rest yourself. You have to be able to empty out so that you can grow something new. But in the meantime, someone's going to take over for you.
I believe
Someone
I
will
received
catch that mission,
I received that. I received that. As a matter of fact, I welcome it.
and they might even be better than you. That's
I want
the
them
hard
to be.
part.
You know what? You are. That's a very prophetic statement. That, and not even just in work, in service and community work. You want someone to take over for you. You want
Absolutely.
them to be better than you.
Absolutely.
How else do you sustain the word?
Exactly.
The biggest tragedy would be not only if youth did not take what I gave them and grow with it and run with it, right? But it's if when I leave this earth, if this doesn't remain, that would be a tragedy. This work has to remain. And oftentimes you talked about seed and harvest and seasons. You don't always necessarily see the fruit, right?
No.
I'm planting seeds now that I may not see, but my children's children's children.
And
will
you
see
don't
the
want
fruit of
anyone
that.
cutting down that
And you
tree.
don't want anybody cutting down the tree before it bears fruit. So yes, I need you to be a better gardener than me. I need you to come in. You might nurture it better. You might water it better.
That's right.
You might be able to find better funding and way. I'm not a grant writer. I'm not even the best fundraiser, but I surround myself with people who are.
I know, but you got money from the Georgia
I
Coalition.
did. They're amazing. Thank you
know
so much to the Southern
know.
Education Foundation. But partners like that, they're better at it than me. They're better at helping identify opportunities within public education. People who are more connected within the community, such as yourself. Other partners, you need people to help you cultivate and grow.
And they need to know you. Last question.
Yes.
Last question, which I think is really important. That was just beautiful about failures. It's so wise.
Thank you.
What would you like people to take away from this interview?
I would like for anyone who's listening to take away from this is that your voice is one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful tool that you have. And we exercise our voice in so many ways. Don't be quiet when your voice is required. Don't miss an opportunity to speak truth, whether it's to speak truth to power, whether it's to speak truth about what you need in this world, whether it's to speak truth about what's going on in your community. Be disruptive. Be disruptive.
But I would think
Yeah.
there's a caveat to that.
Yes.
Speak so people will listen.
Well, listen.
Don't allow anger
Yeah,
to speak for you, because people will tune it off.
that's true.
But
I agree.
Learn how to do that.
Learn how to do so and to be effective and impactful. You're
Oh,
right. And it comes with managing emotion. I think the emotion is required. I'm going to be honest. There are times when a little anger behind your voice may get the attention that's
Yes.
required. And I'm not saying the devices or the methods are correct in some different methods of protest and things that we've seen, but out of rebellion is the outcry of a frustrated people.
Amen.
But it got attention. And again, it will strike a conversation where now solutions can be discussed.
Exactly.
So we can't, anger sometimes is required to get the attention of an overlooked issue and concern. So yes, there is a way and a time to speak, but understand how to do so wisely.
And that's what you're teaching.
And that's what we're teaching, is
God
how
bless.
to use it.
I am so excited you came on
Thank
to
you.
take a stand, because I think you embody everything that we're about.
Oh, you're amazing. And thank you for this platform. It's very needed in the community.
Yes, it is.
All right.
So we're speaking to Melissa D. White. Tell what your middle name is.
Oh, no, you didn't
The
put
D.
me on
I
the spot.
love that name.
This is like the unsolved mystery with me. Most people say, "What's the D for?" It's Denidria.
Isn't that
So
beautiful?
I told my mom, like, she gave me the most simple first and last name, and she just got really creative. She had to throw something in there to spice it up. So
Denidria.
Denidria.
You might want to change your name to Denidria.
I have two close friends that do call me that, and they're the only two people. I laugh, and people say, "Well, did you just like make this up for you to?" And some people even thought the D was made up. I said, "No. As a child, I was taught to write my name that way. In kindergarten, Melissa D. White. I guess I was branded at birth with that name."
Well,
But thank you for having me.
Thank you so much. We've been talking to Melissa D. White, and she is doing a program called
Yes.
Righting Our Wrongs.
Yes.
And it comes from a very holy place in her soul.
Thank you.
So I hope all the listeners, will continue to enjoy listening to this program that we have on YouTube, because now we are on YouTube.
Okay. So for the audience to stay connected,
Connected.
They can follow us on Facebook at Righting Our Wrongs.
Oh, very good.
Also on Instagram at Righting_our_wrongs, or our website at writingourwrongs.org.
So are you saying writing as in WR?
Yes, like writing a letter. Yeah.
They make that known.
Thank you. Yes. So thank you so much, Penny. She's awesome. So yeah, writing, like writing a letter. WRITING, writing. Our OUR wrongs. WRONGS. There you go.
There we go. And I am Reverend Diane Dougherty, and this is Take a Stand. And we have so enjoyed your presence, your mission, your ministry, and delight in your call.
It's an honor. Thank you.
Thank you so much.